Hello, my name is Reva Bhalla, and today I'm joined by my colleague Lauren Goodrich to discuss a crisis event that has occurred today with Turkey downing a Russian fighter jet. So, Lauren, what we know so far from the Turks and what they've put out in the flight path is they show Russia fighter jets crossing Turkish airspace for a brief time. The Turks are saying 17 seconds. And that is when they shot it down. Quite an assertive posture from Turkey, and Turkey has been warning that there could be consequences of violating its airspace. But what have you seen from the Russian response so far?
The Russian response so far has been officially out of the Ministry of Defense is that they did not violate Turkish airspace. Of course, this has been contradicted by other sources such as the United States. However, the Russians themselves are saying they not only did not violate the airspace, but they wanted to let the Turks know that they were going to be stepping up at least along those borders today. However, that communication itself failed.
And that's the thing here is that Russia and Turkey have been in a dialogue for some time, but apparently Russia did not formalize a memorandum of understanding with Turkey as they did with the United States when it came to their rules of engagement.
Not at all. The Russians and the United States formalized their agreement very early on, within the first 2 weeks of Russia opening its operations inside of Syria. However, they haven't done this with any other nations formally.
The other big contradiction that we have here is on the fate of those pilots, where we have Turkmen rebel videos and statements who are affiliated with the Free Syrian Army, who are saying that they shot down the pilots as they were parachuting from the jet. There have been images of bodies with bullet holes in them. At the same time, Turkey may be indicating that the pilots could be alive.
And this comes right after the Russians sent out a search party to try to go after its soldiers. And that search party was actually fired on as well, with more images and video coming from the rebels saying that they even shot down Russian helicopters.
With tow missiles provided by, presumably, the United States has been supplying them with that kind of weaponry. So here is where the Russian narrative gets very interesting, right? Because Russia has been arguing for some time that they are dealing with the Syrian regime because they know the regime and they don't know who these rebels are. And they've been branded as terrorists. So how is this now going to reshape, the whole narrative for Russia when it comes to the Syria negotiations?
Well, Russia's always equated the rebel factions with IS. They don't see a distinction between them, which is very different, of course, from the majority of the rest of the world. But for today, with the actions that took place between Turkey and Russia, President Putin was very quick to come out and say that this shows that Turkey is supporting IS specifically, and that it has stabbed Russia and Russian actions to go after IS in the back.
So the Russian-Turkish confrontation now is out in the open. It's something that we have been anticipating for some time. I mean, it's a natural geopolitical rivalry. We could see Russia and Turkey rubbing up against each other in the Caucasus, and of course in Syria most prominently. This really just lays it all out in the open, though perhaps earlier than either side really expected. So when we see through the implications of a Russian-Turkish confrontation, what are the options that Russia has to even respond to this?
Well, the most obvious is trade. However, there was a statement out of Putin's spokesman saying that Putin is thinking about the military option, which would be a very big step for Russia, particularly because Turkey is, of course, a NATO member. However, the trade option would be much more interesting because Russia can pick and choose what it wants to do within the trade relationship with Turkey to retaliate against Turkey. And it could be something for a short period of time or for a long period of time.
And so we've seen interference on the trade front where Russia can impose border controls and halt Turkish trucks on the border and interfere with trade in that way. That is something that seems very plausible. Energy gets a little trickier, though.
Very much so. So overall, trade between Turkey and Russia is actually rather small in the overall picture for each country. However, when you start to get into the very specific sectors, like you mentioned, energy, that's when things become more critical for both the Russian side and for the Turkish side. So energy trade turnover for Russia exporting to Turkey makes up about half of Turkish natural gas imports. And the problem for Turkey is that all of their pipelines are at capacity at this moment. So there really isn't an option for them to switch to another route here or there. So if Russia decides to cut off that natural gas going to Turkey, that could be a really devastating blow to Turkey at the height of winter.
And I mean, and still, Turkey is in very bad economic conditions right now. And even that would be really focused on the direct energy line that Russia has with Turkey, not so much the Balkan route, which would involve other Europeans, but the Blue Stream route. So that's one area we'll be watching. Now, when it comes to the Syrian battlefield, things are obviously getting very intense there, and Turkey has been preparing for a bigger operation against Islamic State and has been wanting to ensure that Russia would stay out of the way. The question now is, will Russia proceed with more caution in carrying out airstrikes in that area? And that, I think, is still a very open question.
And I think it's also a question of what do Turkey's alliance members, the fellow NATO members, react as well to the situation and to the worsening ties between Turkey and Russia. We do have French President Hollande in the United States today meeting with Obama, and then we have him heading to Russia. And so it's going to be critical to see whether NATO can have a unified response on supporting Turkey and Turkey's position, with Russia, or are they going to be each going their own way?
Well, I think we're going to see some interesting nuances in the NATO position, where for the United States and the Eastern Europeans who have been eager to see Turkey better define its position within NATO against Russia, because Turkey was always kind of a question mark for the Americans and the Romanians and the Poles. And this is an incident that could pull Turkey closer into that alliance, which is, of course, something that threatens Russia. And at the end of the day, Russia does need Turkey, perhaps more than Turkey needs Russia in the current geopolitical environment. Well, Lauren, you and I and the team are going to be very busy covering this crisis event. Thank you for joining me for this brief conversation, and thank you all for joining us.